In every heartache, there's a hidden seed of strength. Join Portia Booker on The Grief Grantor as we journey through stories of resilience, finding gratitude in the echoes of grief. Together, we transform sorrow into strength, pain into purpose. Welcome to The Grief Grantor, where your healing journey begins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of The Grief Grantor. I am your host and face, Portia Booker, is known as your grief wellness advocate. So listen, guys, I want to start off with a quick gratitude moment. So this might sound a little contradictory to some of you, but a couple weeks ago, I had my check engine light come on my car. Now, of course, all the things, right? It could be something simple as far as maybe an oxygen sensitizer or even maybe just changing out a filter. But even though I've tried various things to get it under control, and now that it took me a minute, right? And that leads to my point of being grateful, right? I'm grateful that that check engine light came on in my car because number one, it made me even ask myself, am I checking on my own engine? Right? Am I checking on my own mental wellness? Am I checking in on myself? And so, for those of you who are tuning in, how many of us actually pay attention when we're having some type of pain in our body, right? Whether it's a headache or if we're having upset stomach. How many of us, in a sense, pay attention to our own check engine lights? Let that sink in. And I'm grateful that this transpired for me because it gave me an opportunity to rest. It gave me an opportunity to really, again, find gratitude in the fact that a lot of times I'm sometimes neglectful and not listening and being in tune and aware of my own needs and wants. And so during that time that I was waiting on my vehicle to finally get done, I found time to really reconnect with people. I found time to not be in the swing of going here, going there, being in this place, all the things. I found time to really slow down and be intentional and also really dive deeper into what my check engine light at that time needed. So, for all of you who are tuning in, here's some words of thought for you for this episode and for your day. If your check engine light is coming on in your own life, what is your plan to take action? And what is your plan to seek support in that moment? Let that sink in, you guys. So, we're going to take a quick break right here on the Grief Grantor. And when we return, we are going to be joined by a very, very special guest who has a unique story that encompasses several check engine lights. So, we will be right back after this break.
Hi, I'm Kelly Melissa Reinhart, host of Make Mental Health Matter. Join me on Mondays at 11 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the Achieve TV network right here on E360 TV.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to the Grief Grantor. So, as I mentioned before we went to break, today we have a very special guest who is a very close friend of mine and has a unique journey of finding gratitude, resilience, being innovative, finding empowerment, and also forgiveness through the trials of life. I'm going to give you a little background about her. She is a former news anchor, television host, and the author of the book Kidnapped that depicts not only just her journey, but also the journey of her husband as well. So I'm going to welcome to the stage our guest today, Miss Lorna Greyling. Lorna, hello.
Hi, Portia. Oh my goodness, what an honor and a privilege to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Lorna, was it just maybe not too long ago, roughly a year ago, when I was on your TV show? So it's like the tables have kind of turned, right?
It certainly has, and it's quite strange sitting on the other side. So, but it's interesting. I'm grateful.
You know, Lorna, every day is great that ends in Y. That's my motto. And for our audience who is tuning in, Lorna, what are you grateful for today?
Well, Portia, I heard you talking about your car light coming on, and I just, giggled softly inside because I had a similar experience this past 2 weeks. And I must be honest, I learned something from you now. My focus was not allowing it to upset me and to not lose my peace through it. But I never went that far as to being grateful for it. And I just feel like there's such a power in this, right? Because that is like one step further, is being grateful for even the bad things that happen in our lives. And so, wow, man, great advice. So for me, I am now grateful that my car has been broken for 2 weeks, that I'm running to the gym in the mornings, that I'm taking an Uber wherever I need to go. I'm grateful for that experience. What an experience. And like you say, let's be on purpose and see where this journey goes. There's always a reason for all of this, but being grateful for it, man, that's powerful.
Well, Lorna, think about it, right? Your car might be sitting there idle, right? But think about how you're able to maneuver around it, right? You've taken more time to run in the morning instead of, oh, I got to run to my car. I got to run to my car to get this, run to my car to get that. And then you're, in a sense, stalling on time to get things done, right? So you're able to spend more time outside. You're probably able to spend more time with your family. You're probably able to spend more time reading and self-care. And also, I love what you mentioned about not allowing it to rattle your peace, because I know when we're so accustomed to doing something. I remember, Lorna, several years ago when my car, the starter went out. And I'll never forget it. I remember I was so upset. Like, when I tell you, I was like throwing a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old kid. I definitely was. I'm like, what the heck? I take care of my car. I mean, why does this have to happen? It's expensive. But now I find gratitude in it, because in my eyes, I feel like I'm being saved from something else, right? Imagine if your car, the check engine light came on as you were driving on the freeway, right? And maybe your car completely stalled out, right? You could have lost your life or something. So I always think of now, when things, in a sense, are not going as parallel as I want them to be, I look for the silver lining. You know what? Maybe I didn't need it anyway. Or you know what? Maybe at the same time, even though I'm a little like, I'm so accustomed to doing it, maybe there's something else that I was driven, no pun intended, driven to do in this moment.
Absolutely. And you know what? The power of this, Portia, is so profound, because there is two ways that you can go. Is either a way of gratitude, which gives power to your being, to yourself, to your life, or going into that victim mentality, like poor me, like, oh no, why is this happening again? Why? Poor me. Oh no. And there is just no victory in that mindset, although it's like the natural way to want to go. It's so bizarre. Like, why do we want to go that way? But there's no victory in that. And man, what a powerful moment to realize that, and then to work towards the other side, because that's awesome.
100%, Lauren. And I think, this, no pun intended, shifts in lane to our conversation for today. As I mentioned, you are the author of a #1 bestseller, Kidnapped, which is obviously a true story about, number one, the trauma that both you and your husband endured, even though it mostly pertained to your husband's endeavor. So, Lorna, I'm curious, for our audience, how did you, in a sense, divorce from that victim mindset when this transpired, and was able to, in a sense, rise victorious to share your story to the masses?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question, Portia. And I think it started with a very profound choice right in the beginning of the experience. And, I speak around the world now, and my message is that fear and anxiety is a choice. And it sounds like a bizarre statement, because when you're scared, how on earth is that a choice, feeling that way? But it's that moment before we get that feeling, when something happens to us, is, yes, it's a scary thing, and maybe your body is reacting, but exactly what are you choosing to do with that reaction. There's a very small window of opportunity to make a quick choice. And for me, when I got the news that my husband was kidnapped, before that moment, earlier the morning, that was around 6 p.m. in the afternoon when I got the news, and my whole family was there. Everybody was crying. It was a very, very traumatic and a very real moment. Like, so many people have just been killed and shot and died, and he's been kidnapped, and they don't know whether he's alive or whether he's, where he is. So that's the real circumstances. But that morning before, a friend of mine sent me a text message, which this was long before he was even kidnapped or any of this started. And the message said, she sent me a scripture, a Bible verse, and it said Psalm 91. And she added in her own words that God will protect me, that no harm will come over any of my family members, and that he will send his angels to surround me. And when I received that little Bible verse that morning, I chose to read it, to take heart, to make it take root into my heart, and to hold on to that. For what reason, I didn't know, but I just decided that I received the scripture from my friend, and this is going to be important to me. So when I got the news that my husband was kidnapped, I had a very brief opportunity to make a very big choice. And the choice was, am I going to decide to now emotionally hold on to this fear that this is the reality? He's not here. He's been kidnapped. We don't know if he's alive. So is he dead? What if he's dead? So all of those fearful facts that is lying in front of me, or am I going to hold onto something higher than that? And am I going to hold on to a faithful belief that maybe God will send his angels to surround me? Maybe everything is going to be okay. Maybe my family will be protected. And it's a very, very short period of time that we have the ability to make that choice, because whatever we choose, whether we are aware of that moment or not, we are choosing something. Most of the time, it's the facts and the reality that brings fear. But if we choose to believe and have faith in a little bit of a higher, I want to say, level of understanding that even though the facts against me looks really terrible, maybe this will all work out for good. And maybe I'm going to be all right through this. And so I chose to believe that he's going to be fine. He's going to be looked after. I will not believe he's dead until the facts prove that. So once they give me the facts that he's dead, I'll believe it. But until then, I am going to choose to have hope and to believe that with everything that is inside of me. And I believe that that gave me all the strength and the hope and the calmness and the peace that I needed to endure the next 10 days. That was totally excruciating and, beyond any imagination that we went through. But that was a profound moment. And until today, I focus on that small area that we have the ability to make that choice. Even with something as simple as a car, like you say now, when your car light went on, immediately you have that small window of opportunity to choose. Are you going to be grateful that the car light came on? Or are you going to go into a victim mentality and be angry and say, poor me? What are we going to choose? And it's not an easy choice to make. It's not easy. But whatever we choose is going to result in the way that we feel, the way that we handle the situation. And are we able to have victory in this situation, or is this situation going to overpower us? And that's just a very profound thing that I learned. But I believe that that's the reason why we came out of it so, I would say, unscarred.
Lorna, one of the things I love that you brought back up is that power of choice. I think that we forget how much we get to choose our response, our reaction to a situation, right? Like, yeah, I could have threw my hands up like a little toddler and been upset about my car. Like, oh my God, another problem, another expense. But instead, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this moment and look at it as it is, right? Here's a problem, right? We encounter problems all the time in life, right? I'm going to find gratitude in number one, that I do have a car, right? I'm grateful that I do have a car. I'm grateful that I do have this problem that can be fixed, right? I'm grateful that it didn't come on while I'm in motion and somebody could have hit me and my whole life could have been over with, right? So I think there's a level of intentionality intermixed with our choice, right? And I love, Lorna, for you, how you mentioned about fear and anxiety is a choice, right? Even in the mix of what you went through, and this friend of yours sent you this Bible verse, little digression. Earlier this year, before my father transitioned, I may or not shared this story before, but I remember the day of my father's transition in this year, in April 15th of this year. And I remember it was the highlight of my day. Like, it was a beautiful day. I had the opportunity to do a speaking engagement early in the morning. It was like 3:00 in the morning, to several different countries around the world about using storytelling to help with mental wellness, right? And so later on that day, when I came home, a friend of mine asked me to be a part of her book anthology. And the book anthology, you write a prayer to somebody who is going to read the book, to give them inspiration, to give them, something else to think about, right? To find gratitude. And who would have thought, Lorna, that the prayer that I wrote in that journal would be what I needed that day after I found out my father transitioned? One of the things that I remember I wrote was that the person who reads this, may God's arms of comfort take away the negative thoughts. And if they are present, allow them to be shifted through his love and grace. I remember writing that and I said, wow, who would have thought that right after I finished writing that, literally right after I just put the dot on the period on the screen, I would get a phone call about my father's transition right after that. So when you talk about timing and choosing, and in a sense, not falling into that, oh my God, everything's going in shambles. I was grateful in that moment that I was able to give myself those words, not even knowing that I would need it in that moment.
Amazing. It's like whatever we need in life, it's already there. It's been preordained, and it's our choice whether we see it in front of us, and if we see it, what are we going to do with that? Are we going to grab hold of that? Like, you wrote these words. It came from a place that you didn't even know that you were going to need it, right? And so when you got the news, I heard you say that you were grateful. It's like there was a brief moment where you had a choice whether to be grateful for those words or completely discard those words and say, oh, what does this help now? Because now look what I'm experiencing. Or look at this and say, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for these words, because let me hold on to this, because this is a higher level of understanding. All of a sudden, you're operating in a much higher emotional, intelligent ability to handle the situation in front of you. And that is very, very powerful and profound, because those things determine how well we get through the traumatic phases in our lives. Because we can either be scarred and burnt through trials and tribulations in our lives, or we can come out the other side stronger, more powerful, having a story to tell, where our tests give us a testimony. Or we can just be completely broken and dysfunctional. And those things that are intended to break us down and harm us, we will be broken afterwards. And then it's hard to understand why some people come through hardship, severe trauma and hardship, and they come out the other side better, and others come out the other side just broken. But I firmly believe it's that moment of choice. We have that moment where we can choose, and it's important to get the message out there that you do have that area of choice. And what you do with that choice will ultimately determine how well you get through that circumstance.
Lorna, I'm glad that you reiterated the power of choice, right? Because each and every one of us can choose to respond in a way that's not intentional, right? We respond based on society's version of how we should respond instead of taking a minute to digest the situation. Like, look, this is what's happening. What do I have control over in this moment, right? I have control over my actions, my reactions, my response. Or do we focus solely on trying to be totally in control of everything, which there's a lot of things that are out of our control, right? When we think about it from that sense. So we're going to take our first break right here on the Grief Grantor. When we come back, we will dive more into Lorna's book, Kidnapped. Stay tuned, everybody.
Times that we really thought he was dead, because he would be screaming and you would hear all this torture and then they would shoot.
I said to Lorna, you couldn't feel Jesus. It felt like he left you. You're sort of on your own.
All right, everybody, welcome back right here on the Grief Grantor. We are joined by our very special guest, Miss Lorna Greyling. And before we went to break, we were talking about the power of choice. And Lorna said that fear and anxiety are definitely a choice in these situations and experiences that we have. And Lorna, that kind of leads to a question that I want to ask you. You know, we're going to dive right into your book, Kidnapped. You know, when we think about stories of people being kidnapped, the first thing that comes to my mind is not so much the person who's being kidnapped, who's the prisoner. I'm curious as to the people who are around them, who are affected from this situation. So I'm curious, Lorna, if you can elaborate on how you, in a sense, maybe identified during that time that your husband was kidnapped, maybe areas in your life that you were a prisoner and how you were able to, in a sense, become over those imprisoned mindset blocks.
Yes, sure, Portia. That's such a profound, question, because it's so true, because there's two sides to every situation. It's like the person that's in the trauma, they experience a whole lot of things, and as well as the family. And it comes to my mind when people are sick, or cancer is a big thing, that a lot of people have cancer, and it's such a scary place to be for the person that's in it and that's sick and that's not feeling well. But how does it affect everybody around them? Because that is equally as much pain and trauma as actually the person that's in it, for sure. For me, I'm very grateful for all the support that I had. At that moment, I was living in a small town in South Africa, Johannesburg. Well, not that's the the biggest town in South Africa, but compared to the USA, it's very small. But yeah, we were living in Johannesburg at the time, and I was in a very amazing church community that had a really strong prayer power. They spend a lot of time praying and interceding and getting together. It was not just an event that we went to on Sundays. There was realness in the church, really hardcore heart and prayer. When they did something, they did it wholeheartedly. It was a small church, but it was so powerful. And I was so grateful to be in that community at the time, because when I got the news and when I went through this 10 days of absolute torture, where my husband was being captive, the rebels would phone me and they would be torturing him over the phone. So I would be on the other side of the phone line, hearing my husband dying on the other side. It's a sound that you cannot explain to anybody ever. to hear someone that you love being tortured to such an extent that they think they're going to die any second. And hearing those screams and those begging, like he was screaming and begging me for his life. Like he was saying, help me, please help me, please help me. They're going to kill me. And he would scream from the agony and the pain, thinking he's literally going to die any moment. And this is how the calls went. And being on the other side of the phone, hearing that, you can imagine like your hands are cut off. I want to help him. I don't know where he is. Then the rebels would shoot. I would hear him scream. I would hear them shoot, and they would kill the phone. And then for hours and sometimes days, we wouldn't know whether he's dead or alive. Did they really kill him this time, or is he still alive? So we had to get through those moments of waiting. And when you're in the situation where I'm hearing the screams, there is a fear and there is something that goes through your entire body that you cannot help, you cannot explain it. It just grabs you by the throat. But the moment the phone dies and it sounds like he's dead, I have again that choice to decide, what am I going to believe? Am I going to believe that he's dead, or am I going to hold on to the hope that he's going to be alive? And then by holding on to that hope gave me strength. In that moment of holding on, I had people coming to my house, awesome people who prayed with me, who stood with me, who said, yes, we believe with you. We're going to hold your hands and we're going to believe with you. We're going to pray with you and hold you up when you start feeling weak. I had people bringing food, coming to help me with my kids, take them to school, take them away. In these traumatic times, my house was filled with government officials, CEOs of the big companies that he was working for, armed forces, special security forces, special investigation, facilities. And there was the media, everybody was in my house constantly. It was like in a movie. So in those moments, I had this incredible support team of people who were on the same emotional level than me, believing in a higher form of what we can see in front of us. And that, I feel, is such a powerful thing, is who do you surround yourself with? Do you surround yourself with people who just have platonic conversations, who, if you say something, they just agree with that in terms of, I'm so tired. No, yes, I can see you're tired. You deserve more. Like, this is not. Or are you with people that say, I believe with you. The way you are feeling now is not beneficial to you. Let's stand with you. Let's help you. Let's get you to grow through this. Those are not the comments that we always want to hear. So sometimes we want to drown those friends out. We just want the feel-good ones, the platonic ones, the one we can have a glass of wine with and not even worry about the rest. But in the times of severe trial and tribulation and trauma in our lives, we need those people that can function on that higher level of emotional intelligence, because that is what gets you through it, not the people who hold on to the facts. Because for sure, there were people there that was, looking at the facts saying, like, this is not looking good. Like, we don't know if he's alive. We don't know how to get him out here. I was listening to all that as well on the one ear, hoping that maybe they found a way, and then they would find nothing. So, we always have this battle between the reality and this higher level of hope and faith, which is something we can't see. This week, and this is just something to bring it down to something that is, more relevant to an everyday life, because not every second person's husband gets kidnapped and you have to go through all that kind of severe, things. But my child has been very sick now for over a week. And just before she got really sick, and I mean sick, she's got severe headaches that she just cries. When she's awake, she starts crying. If we don't give her pain medication, she can't handle it. It's too severe. She's delusional. She's not functioning properly. She's very, very sick. And we've been to the hospitals, the doctors, we've done tests, and they can't find out what's wrong. Just before this, I did an interview with a lady who had just lost 3 children. She's a mother. She lost 3 of her children. And, I did a whole story on her life and what she's doing now. So in my mind, the story is very fresh. Like, right, she lost her children. They died. Now my child is so sick. It looks like she's dying. They can't find out what's wrong. I don't have a car. Like, there is just so many things that is taking place right in front of me. And you want to choose to hold or look at what is in front of you, the facts. Like, this could happen for sure. Maybe they can't find the problem. Maybe maybe she can die. That's a real reality that could happen. Or she could be fine. This could take a week or 2, even though they don't know what's wrong with her. She could be fine. And imagine the worst thing that could happen if she's not fine, if she does not get through this. I need to make that choice in my heart that I am going to be okay, no matter what comes over my path. And it sounds almost crazy to say that you have to make that choice up front. What are you going to do with the reality that's in front of you? But the understanding that deeper level of having the choice and having the ability to choose something gives you an upper hand, because when the reality comes, you will already have made that choice. And things will be a lot easier, and you will get through them a lot better, and you will get out better and stronger on the other side. And during this 10 days so far, I've been able to work. I've been able to do all kinds of things that if I had just gotten stuck in the reality in front of me, I've been in that place before where I'm just so exhausted, so stressed out, so anxious, so broken that I can't even be a proper mother. And it's just because it's that mindset, it's that choice. It's that, what am I going to believe? And how am I going to choose? So I hope this makes sense.
No, I love, Lorna, that you brought up something very important that I want to really talk about on this show later on, is how this woman who you interviewed, whose 3 children transitioned, right? And your daughter, I'm sending my love to you, that your daughter gets well. I hope that she's well now, that things are getting better. But I love how you brought up that both of you are in a season of grief, in a sense, right? But here's the beauty with the grief, right? We tend to, what I call, compare whose grief is heavier, right? You didn't dismiss this woman's grief of her children transitioning. Instead, you were inclusive, and you didn't diminish her story. Instead, you put it on the same pedestal as yours, because either way, there's grief there, right? No parent wants to see their children suffering in any kind of way, right? And so I'm glad that you painted light on that. And then number 2, Lorna, again, it boils down to that choice, right? I think that when there's moments that rattle us, right? Like, such as a kidnapping in our daily life, where our car check engine light comes on, or in a sense, you go outside, and where I live at in Ohio, we get the snowmageddon. So the snow is piled up to my front door. I can't go anywhere. But it's like, what am I going to choose in this moment, right? Am I going to choose to be, oh my God, I can't go anywhere because it's cold, it's snowing, and all that stuff? Or am I going to choose to say, you know what? Here's what I can do. The snow is beautiful. I love to look at it. I don't want to keep it all year round, and that's okay. But I'm going to find gratitude in any and everything, right? Because I truly believe, down to like the core of my being, Lorna, that gratitude can be found in any and everything. I'm a firm believer in that.
And the thing is, Portia, I'm so sorry, but I just want to add this. Like, a friend once told me, and I was actually very offended when she said that, but it's the truth, man. She said that we are in our lives where we choose to be. And at that time, when I heard that, I had just lost my business that I've built for 22 years. I'd lost my home because of very unfair circumstances. After COVID, we were attacked in our home, held up with guns. They stole everything we had, and we literally had lost everything. And to be in a moment where I can, those words like, you are where you choose to be. I'm like, well, I didn't choose to be here. Like, that is not my choice, right? How can she even say that? Like, what is she crazy? Yeah, it's easy to say for someone living in a 3-story house, driving a brand new car. Oh yeah, you choose, yeah, you are where you choose to be. Oh yeah. And so I was like, really, like, not happy with those words. But thankfully, I heard those words, and I started dissecting them, and I started applying them in my life. And I thought, all right, let me look deeper into this. Let me see, like, if I am where I choose to be, so where do I want to be in my life? What do I want? So I started making lists, like, this is what I want, not necessarily business wise, but yes, put that out there as well. But this is what I want in my life. But more importantly, I want to be wise. I want to have peace, and I want to be calm, and I want to have love, and I want to be kind, even in horrible circumstances, because I feel like that is such a victory, to have a grip emotionally over yourself, even when things are going severely wrong in your life. How powerful is that? That really means like you have uncovered something a lot more powerful than most people. Because let's be honest, the reality is, if you're sad, cry, be devastated. Like, we see this in the films. Everything is over emotional. Like, follow your feelings, whatever you feel, follow them, because this is what's portrayed in the movies and the TV shows, because, that's what sells, and that's what touches people's hearts. So that's what makes you want to watch more, because you can relate. But in actual fact, in reality, those kind of things and behaviors is not really helping us to be victorious in our own lives. And I'm not saying never cry. I mean, I'm not saying never feel sad. No, that's impossible. Feeling sad, crying, getting angry, those things are what drives us in our lives. We need these emotions. But when we allow those emotions to overpower our decision making in terms of important things in our lives, then it's just going to become destructive. So yeah, I started looking at that. And now every day when I'm having a day and things are not going well, and I sit at night and I reflect and I'm thinking, okay, I am where I chose to be. And sometimes I feel over emotional, and I'm like, I struggle to manage my emotions. My head wants to explode. I'm like, all right, where during this day did I make a wrong choice? Where during this day did I choose to go back to a victim mentality? Where in this day did I choose to be offended by somebody and not to forgive them, not to release them, not to move past that? And if I go back, man, during my day, and we don't always have time for this, granted, things sometimes just flow. But when we do this, I tell you, there will be something in that day that you had the ability to choose to either hang on to in terms of a victim, angry, unforgiveness mentality, or you could have chosen differently. And if we choose unforgiveness, anger, victim mentality, ungratefulness, all those things, at the end of the day, you can feel it. You can definitely feel it.
100%. I think, it boils down to choice. We can choose to show up how we want to. And I love the question, Lorna, of who do I choose to be? Right? Do I want to be this person who's harbored with anger, resentment, or do I want to be somebody who shows up in peace during times of pain? Do I want to be that person who shows up with strength and solidarity in moments of unrest? Right? I think we have to ask ourselves those tough questions. And I think a lot of us have a hard time with that in our own life, because maybe we see the example of who we want to be, but the bigger question that a lot of us don't ask ourselves is, how and what do I need to do to acquire that level or higher version of myself that I aspire to be? So we're going to take another quick break right here on the Grief Grantor. Everybody, stick with us. We've got a great topic ahead.
Hey there, I'm Diane Forster, host of I Have Today, where we talk about the art of intentional living. Our show is on the Fresh Takes channel on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific. So if you're ready to be inspired, empowered, and educated and learn how to live the I Have Today way, then tune in. Hope to see you there.
All right, everybody, welcome back right here on the Grief Grantor Show. We are joined by our special guest, Miss Lorna Greyling. And before we went on the break, we were talking about the importance of asking ourselves those questions of who do we choose to be, right? Each and every one of us occupies a seat in our life that we need to be in at this season, at this time. So, Lorna, for our audience, before we jump into the next part of the show, if there is a website or social media handle you would like to share with us where people can connect with you and get your book.
Thank you, Portia. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think the best place to reach me is probably on my website. That'll be www.lorna, Lorna, like the cookie, Lorna Doon. So Lorna Greyling, like the color gray, GREYLING.com. So lornagreyling.com. And then everything is on there. Everything I do, the TV talk show, my Instagram, Facebook, email, wherever they want to reach me or contact me, for sure, I'm available on there.
Thank you so much, Lorna, for sharing that. So those of you who want to connect with Lorna, get her book, connect with her on social media, start at her website. Lorna, something came through to me in the last segment that I wanted to save for this one. One of the things that I really want to touch on in this show, I told you I created an acronym centered around the word grief. And one of the things that I think we don't talk about in our society enough is forgiveness. And I'm curious for you, right, during this trials that you went through of your husband being kidnapped, hearing him being tortured over the phone, the hang-ups, the people who said they were going to be there for you, but maybe they just couldn't because it was too much for them. I'm curious, Lorna, and we'll start with everyone else. How did you learn to forgive the individuals who captured your husband, the individuals who said that they were going to be there to support you but could not? And then how did you in turn learn to forgive yourself during that season? So start with how you learned to forgive the individuals who captured your husband and the individuals who were not being able to be there to support you during that time.
Oh, this is such a powerful question, Portia. I'm so glad you asked, because I feel like that is the key element of the healing. And, that is the most important thing ever. I'm so grateful that I had learned a lot of truth about forgiveness before this experience happened to us. Because if I hadn't learned about the power of forgiveness and what it does in your life and how it binds you and holds you back if you don't forgive, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. And I probably wouldn't have been sitting in front of you today, for sure. My life would have taken a much bigger turn, and I, might have ended up in some mental institute somewhere, because I truly believe forgiveness is the key to any victorious life. There is very little else, that is important, is forgiveness. To forgive the people that tortured my husband, that is so powerful. That's something that my husband and I actually did together. As well, once he got out, I said to him, look, we need to forgive these people and we need to bless them and we need to pray for them. And we did. We actually sat together. He told me what their names were, what they looked like. And we literally just released each one of them for everything they did. Specifically, we spoke it. We were like, for trying to cut off his arms. So and so, we forgive him for that. We forgive him for the torture and the pain that they caused when they put a rope around my husband's neck and they wanted to hanging on a tree. We forgive them for having a blade and they wanted to cut off his head. And all the pain and all the hitting and all the torture and all the innocent women and children and people, bystanders and other people that were killed and shot during this time. So we forgave them for every little thing that they did, and we released them. And there was this profound release and healing that came with that. There was another thing that I did constantly, and I was blessed enough to realize that in the moment as well, because sometimes, when things happen to us in the moment, we don't always realize that. But if we can be aware of that forgiveness and the power of forgiveness, to do it right there in the moment, then it doesn't even have a hold on us, for future. But people would phone me, being kind, trying to find out, how is my husband doing? Have we heard any news yet? And as people do, because we're human, and it's the same when people, go through grief. Someone's died and you have people calling or coming to visit your home. And sometimes they say things that you might find insensitive. I'm like, oh my goodness, how could these people say things like that? That is offensive. And that is actually like, they don't know what I'm going through, or they don't know what I'm feeling. Like, how can they say that? How can they compare that? How can they bring that up? Like, how does this help me? They would tell me about previous circumstances, about people that were kidnapped and killed and they never found them. And what are you going to do? And do you know where he is? And have you got enough people, to help you? And did you find this person? And why not? Why didn't you get those people in to come and help? And so people would say things out of concern. And I had a choice, again, to hear what they're saying, immediately get offended, get mad, and have unforgiveness towards them, or to hear their hearts, not their words, but hear their hearts and say, these people took the time to phone me because they care, because they are scared for my sake. And yes, maybe the things that are coming out of their mouth right now sounds offensive to me because I'm in a really bad place. But let me not take that. Let me choose to experience the love that they actually called me, and that they love me, and that they care for me. And whenever they, things like this would happen, and I mean, there was a lot of moments where I just had to say, I forgive that person. I forgive their words. I know they didn't mean that. I know they're also scared, but I see the love. I choose to see the love, and I'm grateful for that. And that I feel was also so profound, because we can so easily get caught up and in offense, and it ruins us. It ruins relationships, and hanging on to unforgiveness in things that we might not even be aware of anymore. Maybe it happened so long ago you can't even remember it, but those things hang on. They hang on to your spirit, they hang on to your soul, and they draw you back. They make you heavy. And if you don't release them, we will never find peace if we don't do that. So I think that was very profound. And then I forget the last question. I'm sorry, Portia.
So the last part, because we're going to be wrapping up here soon, Lorna. I'm curious as to how you learn to forgive yourself in that mix.
Yes, thank you. In terms of the kidnapping, I didn't feel like, there was a lot to forgive myself for as much. I didn't really go through that struggle as much. But before the kidnapping previously, there was a lot of things that I needed to forgive myself for sure. I had a whole different life. Previously, I speak about that, in interviews as well, just where I had a life, choices that I made. I chose the wrong things, the wrong friends. I always say, show me your friends, I show you your future. So I had a life of drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and an ungodly lifestyle. And when I came to Christ and that's a whole different story for another day, but there was a profound moment. I actually wanted to kill myself, but I had this heavenly experience and my whole life changed from there onwards. There was a lot of growing that needed to happen inside of me as a person before I could become the person that I am now. But then I did a lot of self-forgiveness. And again, there is so much power in that. Hitting yourself over the head with things that's happened in the past, with ways that you react in circumstances and you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have stayed calm. Look at this mess now. I shouldn't have said that. Why did I do that? Those moments is forgive, release, move on and try again, right? Because that's the only way that we can improve is if we move along and try and be better the next time. That there is just so much value in that. So yeah, just coming back to that self-forgiveness, there's a lot of power in that for sure.
And Lorna, I thank you for shedding light on that, because in our world today, there's a lot of unforgiveness, right? Like I say it all the time. I think I've shared this story before that, during my father's transition, I spoke at his funeral. And before his actual funeral service, I said a prayer to my mom. I said, Mommy, what do I say? What do I say? I asked both my parents. I said, what do I say to our family and friends who are here who are grieving? And I think I shared this with you, Lorna, that my mom used to be a teacher. My mom taught for 13 years special education. And this was the first time that my mom gave me 2 F's. Focus and forgiveness were the 2 words that she told me to run with at the service. And so, when I went up to the podium and, I addressed everybody, I said, listen, everybody, I said, me and my father, we didn't have the best relationship throughout my entire life. But I said, where is our focus today? Where is our focus? Is our focus on the fact that we've lost our brother, our friend, our coworker? Or are we going to focus on what truly matters in this life? If the God of our understanding has forgiven us, why can't we forgive? Right? Despite the fact that my father was absent majority of my life, I made the choice to be present for him as he was transitioning. And it's crazy because it was around this time last year when I got the notion to really make things right with him. And I think doing that, me being the bigger person and choosing to forgive set my soul free. And I think it did the same thing in your life also, Lorna.
Absolutely, Portia. And again, it comes back to the choice. It comes back to the fact that you are where you choose to be at this moment. And we can't choose what life throws at us. We can't. Life happens, right? And sometimes it happens in hurricanes and we can't choose that. There's nothing we can do about that, but we can choose our response and our focus. And that is so powerful. And we cannot focus if we have unforgiveness. It's impossible. If we have unforgiveness in our hearts, we will tend to keep going back. We will look back at it. It will draw us back. It will hold us back. It will make us heavy. It will make you angry. It will make you bitter. It will make you a victim. Those things all root from unforgiveness. So, now if I work with people and I see we're getting stuck, I do some life coaching, and if we're getting stuck in a certain area and we really get into it, 99.9% of the time is because there's some unforgiveness and offense locked in somewhere, and they just cannot move past that. They're just not able to have a grateful mindset. Just, when you tell someone, well, just be grateful, and they're like, well, are you crazy? Like, how? Like, how am I supposed to be grateful? Like, it's so far-fetched for some people. Like, they cannot get there. It's not possible for them to fathom that and to get there. And then it's really a good idea to do some soul searching and look a lot deeper into your heart and see, Like, where in my heart am I holding on to unforgiveness and offense? Because 99.9% of the time, there'll be something for sure. I believe that.
Oh, I 100% agree, Lorna. I mean, I think the beauty of grief, right? And I'm going to go back to this all the time. The beauty of grief, if we're open to seeing it, grief teaches us how to be grateful. It teaches us how to reinvent or rescue ourselves. It teaches us to also be innovative in how we convert our pain, the trials of our life, into a testimony for the masses. It also gives us the opportunity to find empowerment and leverage empowerment in order to help more people to cultivate that mindset, and also forgiveness, right? I think that forgiveness is truly a deep cleansing of our soul if we're open to embarking on it and adding it into our life. So, Lorna, I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show and sharing your journey. And, you know, kudos to everything that you're doing for being able to convert the testimony of your life into a multitude for other people to find inspiration and solace in their life. So I thank you again, Lorna. Well, that concludes another episode here on the Grief Grantor Show. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on the Grief Grantor. May the story shared today light your path and guide your heart toward healing. Remember, with every moment of grief, there's an opportunity for gratitude, resilience, and empowerment. Continue your journey with us online and share your own story, because in this tapestry of life, every thread matters, especially yours.